All right, we're going to get going again. Couple of quick things. I don't want to cut into Chief Halton's time because, like I said, he's smarter than me and will have better information. But we talked about direct engagement, right? We talked about what it means to connect with your crews. And what did I tell you this morning? I was going to give you some $0 ways, right? $0 ways to improve the likelihood that your firefighters are going to go home alive. Here's one example of direct engagement. When I was a battalion chief, I would always send out every morning a question of the day. Question of the day. And the crews would have to research the answers, and when I came around, they had to have their answer ready. Or they could shoot me an email and give me the answer, and we used to do a little competition. Remember, firefighters are what? Right? Competitive, right? So I would have stations, I would have, the 4th Battalion, I'd have 4, 5, 6, 7, 27, 28, 29. So I'd have that battalion, and whoever, at the end of the month, whoever had the most correct answers most quickly, I cooked them the meal. Now, did that cost me money? Yep, it sure did. Was that money well spent? Absolutely. And do I have to eat anyway? Heck yeah. All right, and when I cook, what am I guaranteeing? I'm going to like what we're having. That's exactly right. That's why I always cooked. That's why I always cooked. I always was going to like what we were eating for dinner. I didn't care if anybody else would eat, just.
Smoke alarm.
All right. Say?
Smoke alarm. I have video.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You want to go to Bojangles?
Absolutely.
I have no doubt. All right. Question of the day. On August 25th, 1803, 3 firefighters in the city of Philadelphia were killed in the line of duty. Name them and the circumstances of their death. Provide 3 ways to prevent a similar tragedy at a fire today. Well, here's the answer. Right? 3 firefighters. After extinguishing a major fire in a lead factory, firefighters were taking up from the scene when the front wall suddenly collapsed, burying several of them under tons of rubble. 3 were killed instantly, while a number of others suffered serious injuries. I'm a brilliant guy. Just ask me, I'll tell you. Where did I find this? Google! Thank you very much. GTS. Google that. Right? Google that. GTS. Did I know this? Of course not. Anybody ever heard of Charlie Brace and Richard Stefanicus? Anybody ever heard of them? Charlie Brace, Richard Stefanicus died in the city of Pittsburgh, Bureau of Fire, on St. Patrick's Day a few years ago, 2008 or 9, when, after operating at the scene of a church fire for about 5 hours, they went inside to assess the adequacy of the overhaul, and the entire church fell on them and killed them. The fire had been a defensive fire the entire time. But they wanted to see. So they went inside. And don't think for 1 second that the consequences of a decision you make aren't going to affect other people. Because 3 years after Richard Stefanicus was killed in the line of duty, his son was gunned down on the streets of Pittsburgh in a drug deal gone bad. Now you tell me what it means to grow up without a father. Could this happen today? Anybody ever heard of Eric Schaefer? How about him? Eric Schaefer. 23-year-old Eric Schaefer, riding Rescue Company No. 1 in the city of Baltimore, had been deployed during Gulf War I, survived as a Marine from Gulf War I, came home, was riding on Rescue Company No. 1 in the city of Baltimore, went to a fire known as the Clipper Mill Fire, look that up, Clipper Mill Fire, and was killed when the Delta Wall collapsed while they were cutting a hole in a door to place a ground-based master stream appliance. Stone building. Top went in, bottom came out, crushed him. 23-year-old Eric Schaefer. survived a war, but couldn't survive our fire service. Another example of direct engagement, this is worth knowing while you're going. Worth knowing while you're going. We started a program which we stole from somebody else, because that's how the very best stuff gets shared in the fire service. We stole this. In every single location in Anne Arundel County, literally, every single urinal and the back door of every commode has an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with information called Worth Knowing While You're Going. Now, when this program started, for those of you bar flies, you know this because when you go to the bar, you see it all the time while you're going to the bathroom. It's the daily newspaper or highlights of the things going on. I guarantee you that's where the original idea came from because, well, we hang out in bars and restaurants and things like that. But I digress. When this thing first started, what happened? What did the crews in the field say? Laughed at it. It's the dumbest freaking thing. This is some idiot's executive fire officer project. That's what this is. Some idiot is getting credit on their EFO because they're writing a paper about this program. Within 4 months, I'm not kidding you, within 4 months, what were the crews saying? On the 2nd of the month. Right? Where the hell is that new Worth Knowing While You're Going? What did they figure out? Oh, you mean there's actually stuff on that piece of paper that might help me be more effective in doing my job? Holy cow! There's a thought. How about this? How about, this is the one about the rescue vac, how about you put first arriving engine company operations at a trench collapse? Right? Anybody been to a trench collapse this week? Anybody been to a trench collapse this month? Anybody been to a trench collapse this year? Look around the room. Right? High risk, low frequency event, correct? Where the actions of the first arriving company will make a huge difference in the outcome of that event. How about first arriving engine company responsibilities at a swift water rescue? How about that? Boom, 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 boom. For 30 days. You put it up there. For 30 days. Every single time personnel in your station, doesn't matter whether you're paid or volunteer, you're going to go to the firehouse at some point and you're going to use the bathroom. What do we call this? Training, sir. For you young kids in the room, there was a movie called Stripes a long time ago, before some of you were born, right? Before some of you were born, it was a good movie, right? This is training. Every single day. Here's another one. Another example of direct engagement. Anybody ever heard of Tommy Carr? Right? Who was Chief Carr? If you say yeah, the expectation is that you actually know who it is. Right? Tommy Carr. Tommy Carr was the chief of the Montgomery County, Maryland Department of Fire and Rescue Services, retired from there and went to Charleston, South Carolina. There you go. Now you're with me. All right? Went to Charleston, South Carolina after the Sofa Superstore fire. Matter of fact, went there 1 year to the day after the Sofa Superstore fire. Why did he go there? He was from there originally, believe it or not. He was from Charleston, South Carolina originally. How many of you remember Oklahoma City bombing? 1995 in Oklahoma City, he was the Urban Search and Rescue Task Force leader for Montgomery County, which is one of the first times that the Urban Search and Rescue teams were deployed on the national front. But when Tommy Carr was the fire chief in Montgomery County, one day he's sitting in his office, and he's sitting at his desk, he's minding his own business, and the chief of operations comes in, and he's like, oh, chief, I got bad, it's bad. It's terrible. It's bad. Okay, what happened? There's a video. Okay, what happened? Man, one of our tractor-drawn aerial ladders was going to a call, and they absolutely positively blew a light. I mean, not just a little bit. Never slowed down. Whoa! Okay. Chief, what do you want to do? Who was driving? Technician Smedlap. Oh, Technician Smedlap. Okay, cool. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to get a hold of Technician Smedlap, and I want you to tell him to meet me for breakfast next Tuesday morning at this location. What'd you say, Chief? I'm going to use really little words now. Breakfast, Tuesday, meet me. Okay, I got it. All right, so the word goes down, right? Goes all the way down. Company officer calls firefighter Smedlap into his office. Hey, Chief Carr says he wants to have breakfast with you next Tuesday morning. Really? What about? I have no idea. Man, getting promoted. This is great. I am excited. Sure enough, next Tuesday comes, appointed hour, shows up at the restaurant, sits down, walks in. There's Chief Carr. Who is with Chief Carr? Who?
His family.
That's exactly right. Not the deputy chief. Say it out loud. His family, the technician's family.
Yes, sir.
This really is an exciting day. All right? Come on in, firefighter Smedlap. Oh, yes, sir. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, kids. How's it going? Oh, it's going good. Technician Smedlap, I had an opportunity to show your wife and kids this video, and I want to share it with you. And I want, hey, be safe. All right? I want you to just explain this to me, if you could, please. All right? Video. Wrong! Order yourself some breakfast, son. Anything more have to be said? Right? Look at you. You're rolling your eyes. Why? That'd be it, right? That would be it. That would be the end of it.
He took it to the higher authority.
That's exactly right. All right? Did he have to issue formal discipline? No. Did he have to get the union involved? Nope. Right? Didn't have to do, no formal discipline had to be issued. How long do you think it took for that information to make it out to the field? Right? Before breakfast was over. Because it's tell a friend, tell a staff, tell a firefighter. Right? That's the way you get information shared. What was the chief doing? Was the chief engaging in a little bit of political theater? Oh yeah. Make no mistake about it. What was he saying? What was he saying? I'm not kidding. Don't run red lights. Right? Now, how long would it have taken him to get around to all 1,500 members of that department and look them in the eye and say, don't run red lights? How long would that take? Over a year. How effective would it be? Zero. Zero effect. How many people want to have to answer to their families?
Zero.
Right? In one fell swoop, his message was clear. That's a little bit of high drama. That's a little risky to do. But in this particular case, it was very effective. So how do you measure your efforts? How do you know if you're doing a good job, right? How many of you have a policy relating to the placement of wheel chocks for apparatus and the use of seatbelts while a vehicle is in motion, right? How many of you have a policy on wheel chocks, right? We talked about this earlier today, right? Wheel chocks, very important thing, no doubt about it. So what did I tell you? I told you this morning that as I was pointing a finger at everybody else, what was I eventually going to do?
Point it back.
Point a finger at ourselves. Why? Because we're not perfect. This is an Anne Arundel County fire engine. This is an Anne Arundel County fire engine that went to a pub ed event in the community. We love being around our communities, so we're out at a pub ed event, and we park the fire engine, and we put all the doors up, right? And we want all the kids to come out and do what? Touch a truck. So there's a whole bunch of kids crawling all over the fire engine, bunch of little kids crawling all over the fire engine, and right in the middle of the dash, there's a great big yellow button, which to a 6-year-old says what? 5-year-olds, teenagers, and firefighters. I told you, right? I told you, thank you, right? Push me. Sure enough, what's he do? Bam! Right? Next thing you know, 6 little kids are off to the races. Now, okay? 6 little kids are off to the races, and the doors are all open. If one of those kids had fallen out of that apparatus, fallen under those dual rear wheels, and been crushed to death, when would we have recovered from that?
Not this lifetime.
That's right. Not this lifetime. That's a generation. That's a generation. Now, of course, the pump operator swore that they had put their wheel chocks down, and then swore that the brakes must have failed. So what's the very first thing we did? We impounded the apparatus, turned it over to the state police. State police towed the vehicle from the scene, did a complete DOT inspection on it, and what did they find with those brakes? Thank you very much. Perfectly operational. What didn't we do? We didn't put the wheel chocks down. Look, how many times have you walked past a piece of apparatus operating on the scene of an incident and seen the wheel chocks not down and not done anything about it? Just kept right on walking. Think about it. How long does it take to stop, toss the chocks, and then find the pump operator and say, hey, I threw your chocks for you just so you know. When you go to leave, pick them up. Does that involve discipline? You got to call them out in front of everybody? No. You don't got to be a jerk about it. But you do have an opportunity to fix the problem. You have an opportunity to close a hole in that Swiss cheese. And if you're a company officer, you back up your firefighters. If your firefighter sees it and throws the wheel chocks and goes to the pump operator, technician, and says, hey, I tossed your wheel chocks for you. Don't ever touch my fire engine again as long as you live, punk. Do you understand? That's my fire engine, not yours. Because that doesn't happen, right? Because the firefighter's tendency is going to be to do what? I'm not touching his fire engine. I'll just walk past it. Next time, fine. Screw him. Screw him. I'll walk right past it. Let him deal with the consequences, right? That's where a company officer says, ho! Square up with me, young man. That's not how we play, right? And if the company officer isn't willing to do it, a battalion chief damn sure better be willing to. I'm not pointing a finger at you, sir, but I see you wearing bugles, and I figure, right? Please understand it's not loaded, I promise. All right? All right? Here's another one. I'm working Battalion 2. I'm minding my own business. I'm sitting in the office. It's about 7:30 at night, and the first thing I hear is, 131 to fire alarm, we've been involved in a motor vehicle collision. Start a rescue box. Now, I know instantly that something very bad has happened because the voice on the radio is the firefighter riding backwards. Which means what? Neither the technician driving nor the officer were able to call it in. That engine did not roll over, and no cutting was done on that engine. Now, in this situation, the career pump operator, the volunteer officer, the career firefighter in the back, and 2 other volunteer firefighters in the back were going to a medical emergency, CVA. They had a big argument in the firehouse about which piece of apparatus they were going to go on. They could not decide. They couldn't agree. They couldn't figure out what they were supposed to be doing. So they're screaming at each other because they're acting like 5-year-olds, and they can't help it. So they're all acting like a bunch of kids, right? So they go out the door, and they make an arcing turn out of the station to go up a side street. They lose control. They strike a 30-inch telephone pole right there, which shears the door off the apparatus. They strike a ground pad transformer, and which brings the telephone pole brings the other telephone poles down on top of the apparatus, which you see, right? Renders the officer and the pump operator unconscious. The engine comes to a rest 500 feet down the roadway, which tells you what? They were flying. They were absolutely flying. Both the officer and the technician were found in their seats. Why? Because they had their seatbelts on. Now, do you think that they stopped to think about putting their seatbelts on while they were busy screaming at each other? No. What was it? Habit. Because the culture of that particular organization in that station had been reinforced again and again and again that the apparatus doesn't leave the station without what? Without putting your seatbelt on. So they're screaming at each other while they're doing what? You no good son of a... I'm going to freak you. As soon as this call's over, we're going out back. Boom. Just so you know, there are consequences. Technician got demoted and will never drive again. The volunteer officer crushed his pelvis and will never fight fire again. Organizational rules, things that never change. First of all, people, you, are what make the organization. Nobody in the public calls the fire chief's office and says, Chief, I got to tell you, I watched your engine company lay a supply line the other day. It was the straightest supply line I've ever seen. It was amazing. It was textbook, right? No one ever calls and says, Chief, when that medic unit got on location, the way they put those 12 leads on my chest was just, man, it was straight out of Brady. It was unbelievable. I've never seen that done so efficiently. It was just awesome. Right? What do people do?
Complain.
Okay.
Point out the bad.
When people call to compliment, though, what do they say? The crew was what? They were nice to me. They solved my problem. They made me feel important. And the only people that generally, the people that call to complain, generally, you had to have done something generally pretty serious, because more often than not, the public gives us the benefit of the doubt. Probably more often than they should. People are what make the difference in our organization, not policies, procedures, rules, apparatus, dispatch centers. Right? The building doesn't make the difference. The dispatcher makes the difference. The dispatcher makes the difference. Second, we're not perfect. And no one ever said that we were. But this is our house. And we should take pride in getting to be part of something bigger than ourselves. This is an important thing to have a conversation about with your crews. Because so often what happens is rookie firefighters, regardless of whether they're paid or volunteer, start into the service and they quickly become disillusioned. Why? Because they come to the realization that 90% of this is not life and death. 95% of this is not life and death. 95% of this is ordinary people having a bad day. And overwhelmingly, it is not a life-threatening emergency. They may be having the worst day of their life, but this is not Chicago fire. This is not Ladder 49. This is not Backdraft. This is not Rescue Me. And for those of you in the room that have been around long enough, this is not the Towering Inferno. It's a fire, lady. They're all serious. Look it up. You'll see it. All right? But it's important to say this out loud to your personnel. This is how you build that culture. We are not perfect, and no one ever said that we were. Third, personal discipline and a willingness to be accountable for our actions are the cornerstones of our organization. Loyalty, not to a person, not to an individual. At the end of the day, fire chiefs don't want individuals to be loyal to them. They want individuals to be loyal to the core values of the organization and uphold our finest traditions. Fourth, there is no them and us in the fire department. There is only us. Them are on the outside who want to wear our patch. Us are on the inside who get to wear the patch. That's it. There is no them and us. There is only us. Finally, you are always a member of the organization, always. Whether you're 3,000 miles from home or right around the corner, actions always speak louder than words ever can. Actions speak louder than words ever can. Again, conversations with your personnel. Conversations with the members of your organization. It doesn't matter whether you're paid or volunteer. I have seen incredibly professional volunteer organizations where the standards of membership are way up here. And you know what they get? You know who joins those organizations? People who can meet those expectations. And greatness grabs greatness. But you don't want to be friends or let some guy drive you around whose nickname is Crash. The only thing you're volunteering to do is join. After that, it's all about commitment. But that commitment has to be defined on the front end. When folks come into your organization, you have an obligation on the front end to say out loud to them, hey, we want you. We need you to be a part of our organization. But this is our expectations. If you can do that, great. If you can't, no harm, no foul, but you need to go look somewhere else. Us versus them. Fire chiefs spend 98% of their time dealing with problems, personnel problems that arise from 2% of the organization. All right? 98% of our time dealing with personnel problems that arise from 2% of the organization. The problem is that it clouds perceptions and oftentimes will lead to a disconnect. Because if all you do is spend 98% of your time dealing with the 2%ers, what do you begin to inadvertently believe? They're all like that. They're all like that. And if you're a captain in a station and you have one person who causes you problems, what's the scope of your problem? One person, that's it. But when you're the fire chief, how many of those problems belong to you? All of them. All of them. Every single one. How many of you got into the fire department to wear a tie and sit at a desk? Right? I used to be so myopic. I was an idiot, even worse than I am today. Because when I got hired in the fire department, I used to tell people I have the greatest job on the planet. The greatest job imaginable. If I ever had to sit in an office all day and wear a tie, I'd kill myself. I couldn't do it. Do you know what I do every day now? I sit in an office and I wear a tie. I should jump, except the windows are sealed for good reason. Right? No fire chief gets into the business to be the fire chief. They may ascend through the ranks and accept that level of responsibility, but the further you go in an organization, the further you are from that which drew you to the service in the first place. Chief, why'd you get into the business? I'm just asking.
New to fire and EMS.
Right? New to fire and EMS, right? You want to do that.
Yes.
Right? You want to help people. Is that pretty fair? Right? Help people. Absolutely. What do you get when you help people? What? Say it? That's exactly right. And how concrete is that? How instantaneous is that? You're like, bam! Right? You're like instantaneous satisfaction. When you help somebody, when you make somebody's day better, right? Regardless. Instant satisfaction. The further you go in an organization, the higher you go, the further away you get from that which drew you to the service in the first place. So what you end up doing is you end up having to find that concrete sense of satisfaction from ensuring that others can do that. That's a hard thing to do. That's a very hard step to take. Remember these two basic things, folks. These two basic things. If you lie, steal, or talk behind other people's backs, people will not trust you. Think about that. if you lie, steal, or talk behind other people's backs, and that happens all the time in the fire service, it happens in every single profession. It happens in every single profession. We are very willing to criticize each other. But the problem is that in your desire to be one of the gang, in your desire to want to gain acceptance as part of the crew, in your willingness to pile on to somebody else, what ultimately happens after you leave the room is that folks question what you're saying about them when they're not in the room. You don't have to say nice things about somebody who doesn't deserve to say nice things about them. Shut up. Just don't say anything. You can always find non-committal words. I just had an opportunity to spend a little time with my dad. He says, Matt, he says, it's been incredibly interesting having you here. Okay. However you want to take that. I'm like, well, Dad, it's been interesting being here. Right? Indescribable. How do you feel about that? Oh, it's indescribable. Right? Now, you may have a complete and total perception that is completely describable. Do you need to actually say that? No. Indescribable or unbelievable. Those are two of the most valuable words that you will find that will keep you out of trouble. Here's the second thing. If you are rude or disrespectful towards other people, people won't respect you. Trust and respect. These are the cornerstones of leadership. You give up one of these, you have ceded your ability to be a leader. Trust and respect. These are the cornerstones. Bring it full circle. Preventing normalization of deviance. Number one, recognize our vulnerability. Our culture is setting us up for failure. Our culture is setting us up for failure. We have an obligation to change our culture. Number two, execute to meet standards, which requires practice. I talked about the pursuit of perfection. The relentless pursuit of perfection yields excellence. Yields excellence. But it is the relentless pursuit of perfection. Remember the Blue Angels. Trust your instincts. Trust your gut. How do you get this? Three things: training, education, and experience. Not one of these things at the expense of the others. Think of these three things as the three legs on a stool. If you have a three-legged stool and you remove one of the legs, what happens? Falls over. If you have two of them gone, what happens? Right? Falls over, there's no way. You need all three. An educated firefighter is as dangerous as an experienced firefighter, is as dangerous as a trained firefighter who doesn't possess the other things. All three are critical. It is not disrespectful to get a college degree as a firefighter. It is not disrespectful to go to the National Fire Academy. It is not disrespectful to go to FDIC or FRI or any of the other national conferences where you can learn things. It is not disrespectful to be out every single day drilling. All of those things combined create that gut. And then follow it. Listen to your gut. Challenge your assumptions. If you have never had an LODD in your organization, ask why. Why are we doing this? Why do we operate this way? If it is your SOP to not lay a line as a first engine company, to not lay a line going into a working structure fire, why? Because the second engine is always going to pick up that responsibility, which only assumes what? That there's going to be a second engine at all, and that it's going to get there. Challenge your assumptions. I'm not saying that it's okay, not okay to not lay a supply line. If you choose not to lay a supply line, you just need to have a good, defendable reason. That's what I'm saying. You have to be smarter than your enemy. Challenge your assumptions. All right, what did I tell you? We're going to do what? This is Loudoun County operating at a structure fire. This is side Charlie of a fire in downtown Leesburg on the night of the city car show. If you've ever been to Leesburg during the car show, you know that the entire downtown area is completely congested with classic cars. This is side Charlie of a taxpayer fire. There's company officer right there. Right? That's him John Wayning the door and going inside and then coming right back out again because he got run out of the building. There's his firefighter putting on his mask, bringing the line. Right? Now the rookie firefighter has been taught transitional fire attack, which is what? If you see fire, put water on it continuously until it goes out. But the officer pulls him off of that and drags him inside. We're going to go in and get this fire, son. Okay. And the rookie's like, hell yeah, we're going inside. We're going to put this fire out. Okay. So they're inside now. Right? They're putting a hell of a hit on that fire, aren't they?
We're almost done. Good.
All right. There's the officer. That's a damn good question. All right. There's a firefighter. Fire goes on for a while and eventually the fire goes out. Right? We put the fire out. There was a jewelry store on the first floor. Jewelry store on the first floor. We do all the salvage operations, save that, we put the fire out. The town goes what? Right? They go crazy because we saved all the cars out front too. Right? So in the newspaper, the town is doing what? The greatest fire department in the world. And everyone's riding high. Fire chief came to the fire. Chief Brower, he was on side Alpha, out front, where the command post was. And from his perspective, what happened to this fire? Textbook. Textbook operation, man, this went great. And then 2 days later, Chief of Operations walks into the fire chief's office and says, Chief, let me show you what happened on side Charlie. How many rules did we break? Right? A lot. Right? John Wayne that door, bam. Right? Go inside. Did he even check to see if the floor was there? Nope. He goes inside. He gets run right back out. Then they get a hose line. The rookie firefighter wants to do what? Right, little transitional fire attack, reset that fire so they can get down the hallway and make the turn to get back to where the scene of the fire is. But the officer's like, what? We don't do that silly stuff. Come on, boy, we're going. Grabs a hold of the firefighter, in they go. Do they get to the scene of the fire? Nope, do not get to the scene of the fire. Next thing you know, here comes what? Here comes the officer. Where is his firefighter? Still inside. What did he do? Left him. Left him. Firefighter comes out, and eventually, they do what?
Not today, the
Right.
firefighter actually does.
Right? Put the fire out. That's exactly right. Fire goes out. Right? And everyone on the front of the building is like, oh! Right? Let me tell you the other part. Early on in the video, you may have noticed that the officer came running back out. Why did the officer come running back out? He got run back out because there was a hose line at the bottom of the steps from side Alpha that looked up and saw a fire. So what were they doing? They were hitting it from the bottom of the steps. So what did we have? Opposing hose streams. We supposed to have that?
No, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a test. You pass 100% right there. All right? Opposing hose streams. No. For you law enforcement officers, that's like having two people with weapons shooting at each other. All right? Just in case you were wondering. All right? Same thing. No one's perfect. So, what do we do? What do we do with the officer?
Breakfast.
Right? Yep. He got to come to the fire chief's office. He didn't buy him breakfast. All right? But he got to come to the fire chief's office, and the fire chief was like, blah. All right? Now, where do you think that officer learned to behave that way?
Somebody before him?
Right? Okay? And, honestly, he also volunteered in another metropolitan jurisdiction. And in that metropolitan jurisdiction, those behaviors are celebrated. He forgot what patch was on his arm that day. You can be a 5-year-old across the river, but when you come here, how about you act like a designated adult, like we pay you to? Like we expect you to. You may have not even noticed, right, that he went in and was making entry with his waist strap dangling around his waist like Christmas tree ornaments. What did we do? He got to do a training program for all the officers in the department. He got to stand up in front of his peers and say, you know what? Don't do that. The takeaway from this today is that we are all guilty of normalization of deviance, all of us. We can and must do better. Every single day, we are deviating from those things that we know should help us go home alive. Every single day. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what are you prepared to do? What are you, as a company officer, as a chief officer, as an engineer, as a leader within your organization, what are you prepared to do? I am very good friends with a woman named Tina Houck. Tina Houck's husband, Brian, was killed on December 23rd, 1997, when, upon receiving a call for a report of a motor vehicle accident, left his home, got in his Chief's buggy, drove down the road. A 17-year-old kid came out from the side street. Brian swerved to miss him, went off into a ditch, was ejected from the vehicle, and was killed. Tina has been an unbelievably strong survivor in the fire service. So, because we're friends, and because we always share pictures, one day I get an email from Tina, like I do periodically, and she says, and the tagline is, pictures of Parker, which is her grandson. So of course, without a moment's hesitation, what do? Open it up. This is Parker visiting his grandfather for the first time. And this is the only way that he will ever know his grandfather. What are you prepared to do? Final words. Be smart. We always tell people, be safe, be smart. Make good decisions. Be smart. This is a thinking person's calling. This is a thinking person's calling. Have fun. Can you believe people pay us to do this? Are you kidding me? It's criminal. Not really. For the attorneys in the room, it's not actually criminal. Just don't look up the USC code. Let that go. All right? Let that go. This is the greatest calling ever. We get to wear the uniform of honor. We get to have the opportunity to be stewards of a gift that has been entrusted to us, and we get the opportunity to leave it better than we found it. This is a gift. Demand the best from yourself and from your people. Develop your relationships, model your mentors, and prepare your replacement. Prepare your replacement. We all will leave the fire service one day. All of us. All of us will leave being an attorney. All of us will leave being a county administrator. All of us will leave being a law enforcement officer. We will all leave one day. Our job is to leave it better than we found it and prepare our replacement. Never stop learning from good and bad experiences. Remember what I told you. Within 30 days, if you don't do something with the information in this program, you will lose 80% of it. It will fall straight out of your head. 80% will fall straight out of your head. Take this information. Use it. Here's my contact information. Send me an email. I promise I will send you this program. Take credit for all of it. It was your idea. This is all you. For the cops in the room, take my program, and then you can just make fun of us. All right? It's okay. We do the same thing. All right? But y'all can make fun of us. All right? Look what these dumbass firemen are doing. All right? And then, after they get past looking at that video, then teach them. If there is anything that I can ever do for any of you, no matter what, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it doesn't matter. I was Matt long before I was ever anything else in this fire service, and I will leave being Matt. If I can be of service to you, please, please let me know.